welcome to the point. In this session, we are discussing about human rights, fundamental duties and value education. Ethics, it refers to moral principle that controls or influence a person's behavior. The morality of recognizing the right of every living creature to survive in this world, it is the basic demand of environmental ethics for all human beings. Man is a part of the environment and he must live in the harmony with other forms of life and available resources on the earth. IUCN, that is International Union for the Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, it has been provided some ethical principles for preserving biodiversity. IUCN has stated that this world itself is an interdependent. It is wholly composed of human beings and natural communities. The well-being and health of any one community is depend on the well-being and health of the other portion. Human beings are part of a nature and they are covered under ecological laws. All life forms on the earth, they depend on uninterrupted functioning of natural systems and that ensure the energy flow and supply of nutrients. Human beings must recognize the right of other life forms or spaces to permanently and freely exist in nature. Man should consider sustainability as the basic principle for any social and economic development. Human rights with the dimension of moral ethics, it must be ensured to all men and women. Human rights and fundamental duties. These rights and duties are derived from the principle of natural law. This law claims that society must recognize the human rights and they should be provided for the individuals. These are certain rights which must be provided to an individual because one is born as a human being and there are certain rights and privileges that one must enjoy. Human rights, these were first certified by Britain in Magna Carta in 1215. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations on December 10, 1948, it provides a comprehensive protection to all against all forms of injustice and human rights violations. This Magna Carta, that is the human rights and fundamental rights, it defines specific rights such as civil rights, political rights, economic and social and cultural rights. The Constitution of India grants its people civil, political, economic and social rights for improving their life through the provisions of fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy. It also lays down fundamental duties for all citizens of the country. Human rights. Human rights, these are the basic rights for every human being. The importance of human rights is to protect the weak against the strong, to provide every individual equality of treatment and opportunity, to ensure sufficiency of information to everybody for enabling correct decision making, to fulfill for everybody the basic human need for food, clothing, shelter, health, education, work and social security. Human rights are classified into some distinct categories. They are first generation rights, second generation rights and third generation rights. First generation rights. This can be identified as the right to liberty and they are represented by civil and political rights. That is, right of individual to remain free from arbitrary interference by the state. Second generation rights. This is for equality relating to protection of economic, cultural and social rights, like the right to creation of conditions by the state that will enable all the individuals to develop their maximum potential. Third generation rights. This is for solidarity of human being. This is to ensure an international legal and economic order, to guarantee the right to development, to disaster relief assistance, to peace and to a good environment. Human rights and ecological balance. Human beings, they have a right to clean and healthy environment. Therefore, any act of creating pollution or depleting natural resources and that act that leads to a destruction of the ozone layer are considered as a human rights violation. Violation of the human rights for a clean environment is in tune with the violation of animal rights for a clean habitat. Concept of sustainable development. Sustainable development, it is a development strategy that maintains all the assets like natural resources and human resources, and as well as financial and physical assets for increasing long-term wealth and well-being. Sustainable development, it rejects policies that support current living standards by depleting the natural resources, and it leaves future generation with poorer prospects and greater risk than our own. Let's discuss the basic concepts of sustainable development, and it should have the following features. Renewability. The rate of utilization of renewable resources, it should be less or equal to the rate of production of the resource. Adaptability. A society should get adapted to the changing environment. Interdependence. A sustainable society, it depends on its own resources. Substitution. Sustainable development, it ensures substitution of the use of non-renewable natural resource by the use of renewable natural resources. Institutional commitment, it means that there should be a political support, constitutional provisions, legal framework, coordination between institutions, and above all, the ability to understand the need for sustainable development in a society. Fundamental duties. There are 10 fundamental duties for every Indian citizen, which is added by the Constitution of India by the 42nd Amendment 1976. These fundamental duties, it is present in Part 4A, Article 51A of the Constitution. Article 51A of the Constitution, it says that it shall be the duty of every citizen of India to abide by the Constitution and respect its ideals and institutions, to respect the national flag as well as the national anthem, to cherish and follow the noble ideas which are inspired from our national leaders, their struggle for our freedom, to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India, to defend the country and render national service when called upon to do so, to promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood among all the people of India apart from their religion, language and region, to value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture, to protect and improve the natural environment including forests, lakes, rivers, etc., to develop scientific temper, humanism and spirit of inquiry and reform, to safeguard public property and abjure violence, and to strive excellence in all spheres of individuals and collective activity so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels. These are the fundamental duties given for every citizen. There will be an involvement of the state in fundamental duties and which is represented in Article 48A, and this article, it was added in the Constitution as directive principles of state policy. This directive principle states that the state shall endeavour to protect and improve the environment and to safeguard the forest and wildlife of the country. The central government as well as the state government should consider the directive principle before making any law. Value education. Value education, it refers to learning activities which ranges from training in physical health, mental hygiene and manners, proper social behavior, civic rights and duties, aesthetic and religious training. Value education, it is a powerful tool that brings about some economic and cultural progress of a country. Value education is one of the national priority in National Educational Policy 1986. The 5 dimensions have been identified on value educations are physical education, emotional education, mental development, aesthetic development, and moral as well as spiritual education. Value education, it provides a proper direction to the youth, which inculcates a positive attitude among the youths. It teaches them to distinguish between right and wrong. It also teaches how to inculcate values like compassion, helpful attitude, love for peace, generous and tolerance. Thus, this value education brings a harmonious, peaceful, enjoyable and sustainable future. The Apex Court of India, it has issued an order to make the environment education a compulsory subject from the school level to the college level. Thus, the prime aim of the government is to make everyone environment literate. The environment, it belongs to each one of us and our actions affect the environment. If the environment gets affected, it affects our health adversely and thereby tampering with our well-being and our future. The following ways can help in making environmental education a value-based. Textbooks should be prepared on environmental education. Values like love, compassion, tolerance and justice shown to woven into the fabric of environmental education. Cultural and religious values must be infused by teaching everyone not to exploit nature. Ethical values, it should be encompassed where everyone thinks only about the welfare of the earth. Global values should be stressed, which tells us the phenomena occurring on the earth are interconnected and interlinked with bonds of harmony. Spiritual values that focus on self-discipline, contentment, reduction of wants, freedom from greed, etc. This helps to promote the idea of conservation and transform the consumeristic approach of the people. Following all the above ethical values, it attains the goal of sustainable development and environment conservation. Citizens' responsibility towards environment. So every human being, they has certain responsibility towards the environment. Our environment, it affects us directly or indirectly. We have brief idea about pollution, global warming, dumping of waste, depletion of resources, deforestation, ozone layer depletion, etc. But caring about the environment, it does not end with knowing about it. One has to perform certain measures to curb the environmental problems. Some of the measures are: say no to plastic and instead of plastic, use bags made of cloth. Use organic manure instead of chemical fertilizer. Keep the surrounding clean and tidy. Travel by public transport or in a carpool instead of using own vehicles. Plant more trees, especially in the areas where tree felling is more. Do not over-irrigate the fields without proper drainage in order to prevent waterlogging and increasing salinity of the soil. Do not undertake construction in the areas marked as green belts. Do not keep the taps running while washing utensils and clothes, brushing, etc. Water the plants using a bucket rather than using a pipe. Make provisions for rainwater harvesting system in your house and locality. Install water-saving toilets. Encourage ecotourism. Use alternative source of energy rather than using conventional fossil fuels. So these are the measures that every individual should follow towards their environment. That's all for the session, guys. Thank you.